April 2nd, 1985. Just in from Belgium. Financial problems led to Singing Nun's suicide. Officials today said financial problems appeared to be the motive for the suicide of Singing Nun Jeanine Deckers, who was found dead along with her roommate. The two women died from an overdose of sleeping pills, a spokesman for the state attorney's office said. I was on staff at a church in Los Angeles during the time of Debbie Reynolds' death, and so I was very nearby to visit the cemetery, and I decided to do a tribute of her using the song Dominique in The Singing Nun. To my amazement, I had no idea that this would cause a phenomenon once again. That now, at this present moment, we have 3.8 million views and 37,000 likes and many comments that are really heart-touching. This song topped the charts, and so I decided to do a tribute to Debbie Reynolds, but at the last moment I noticed that Mary Ford had a version of it, and believe it or not, I put Mary Ford's version with Debbie Reynolds singing in the video. So the audio is Mary Ford, but the video is Debbie Reynolds. And it's because the words are so different. And the people, evidently, mainly in Europe, have enjoyed it immensely.
And now, the story of the former Catholic nun who may go to jail for not paying back taxes on a huge hit that she had 15 years ago. It was in 1963 that a Dominican nun from Belgium named Sister Luc Gabriel appeared on the old Ed Sullivan TV show and sang a song called Dominique. The response from the TV broadcast was so great that a record company decided to put the song out as a single. Before long, the whole country was singing that catchy melody, and the popularity of the record and Sister Luc Gabriel gave Hollywood the idea for a film. In no time at all, there was a movie called The Singing Nun, starring Debbie Reynolds. All of this happened between 1963 and 1966, and because she was a Dominican nun and had taken a vow of poverty, Sister Luc Gabriel received none of the profits from her work. All the money she earned went to charity, and the funds were handled by a lawyer for the convent. Well, 12 years ago, Sister Luc Gabriel left the convent, resumed using her original name, Jeanine Deckers, and now makes a living giving guitar lessons at $3 an hour. Recently, the Belgian government contacted her and said that since she isn't a nun anymore, she now owes the government $110,000 back taxes on the money she earned as a singing nun. Miss Deckers says she never saw the money, but she can't prove it, because the lawyer has died, and nobody can find his records. So it's up to the Belgian courts. If the ruling goes against Jeanine Deckers, the singing nun could go to prison. But we don't think that'll happen. Anyway, the minute we hear any further action on the case, we'll pass it right on.
But then tragedy. Singing nun and gal pal in double suicide. And so now the interest comes up. What about the real singing nun? Who was the real singing nun? Well, it'll interest you deeply. And especially that it's the month that we look at the LGBTQ community. Now the tragic story of Jeanine Deckers, known as the Singing Nun, has been reclaimed by her new native Belgium. A new film tells the painful tale of the naive young sister from Brussels suburb who eventually left her convent and took her own life. The story of her rise from an awkward convent novice to the Grammy Award-winning guitar strummer known as Belgium's Elvis Presley in a habit. Belgium Singing Nun, New York Times, has reported a suicide. Tragedy of the Singing Nun. New film tells tragic story of Belgium's Singing Nun.
Qu'elle fasse un disque. Nous pourrions même y gagner 3 sous dans cette affaire.
Sœur quoi?
Sœur Sourire.
Dominique.
Des milliers de disques ont déjà été vendus. Sœur Sourire, Dominique.
S'occuper d'un orphelinat, c'est quand même plus utile que tes chansonnettes à 2 balles, tu crois pas?
Bah mes chansonnettes à 2 balles, comme tu dis, c'est des millions pour ton orphelinat, d'accord?
Mon instinct, un peu comme un animal. C'est pas si mal ça. Tu devrais essayer.
Bonjour, je suis Jeanine Deckers.
Tu entends, Lucien, ta fille rentre au couvent maintenant.
Parce que t'as raté ta vie qu'il faut que tu foutes la mienne en l'air. C'est une Dominicaine, ma fille. Pas Elvis Presley. Prenez bien soin de vous, mon enfant. Je ferai ce que je peux, ma mère.
Sœur Sourire, puis-je vous poser 2-3 questions?
Monty, hein? Défends ton honneur bafoué? Je peux pas t'aimer, j'arrive. J'ai suivi mon intuition. Alors qu'est-ce que j'ai fait de mal? Qu'est-ce que vous faites, ma fille?
Bah, Sœur Sourire, je m'entraîne.
The Singing Nun, whose music brought joy to millions in the 60s, has killed herself in a suicide pact with a mystery woman friend. The tragedy came 23 years after her smash hit in Dominique climbed to the #1 spot on American record charts. The song Dominique, inspired by the 13th century saint who founded her order, sold millions of copies worldwide, and Deckers remains the only Belgian to have had a US #1. And D.A. Chadwick spoke the Singing Nun story. In it, we find that Jeannine was involved with the early charismatic movement. She was thrilled at the renewed faith instilled by the charismatic group.
Through the power of the Holy Spirit, those who have been divided for centuries came together in love to express their desire to be one, that the world may believe Jesus is Lord.
I am more conscious of my vocation as an artist, and my importance before God is in the songs, music, and my writing. I take my religious dedication much more seriously.
In her heart, Jeanine Deckers wished only to serve God through His people in spite of her turbulent nature and unfortunate circumstances. While she raged against God over the dark times, she also praised Him for every little spark of joy in their lives. Final preparations included Annie discharging her private clients and writing goodbye letters to friends and each other. They both also wrote a last will and testament to Jean Burler, with Annie doing most of the writing. Wednesday, March 26, 1985. Dearest Jean, this is the last message that we send you, as by mutual agreement we agree to kill ourselves this Saturday. On March 21st, they stopped answering when people dialed their phone number. The two women spent March 24th and the 25th, 1985, going through the apartment, putting labels on items they wished friends to inherit. They planned to be dead by March 30th at the latest. It is common for those planning suicide to give away their belongings. When you receive this letter, we will be gone. We entrusted Jean Yves to find a doctor for us who will note the time of our deaths. Our wills are on the table in the living room. We have no money for the funeral expenses. We have nothing any more.
Jeannine is into perpetual depression and only lives for me, and I live for her. That cannot continue any longer. We really suffer too much, and friends don't want to help us financially. Yes, 2,000 or 3,000 francs owed here and there to repay, and we can't. We become buried more and more. We failed in our lives. We have no ideal anymore except God, but that doesn't satisfy us. We leave in peace for the eternal life, and we hope that God will forgive us. He saw us suffering, and He will not give up on us. Here I have no strength to say any more. Jeanne either. When you receive this letter, we will no longer be alive. We appreciate you very much, and you are our friend. Kisses, Annie. Below, hardly readable, from Jeannine. Before joining the distant grounds promised by God, I give you a big kiss and entrust to you the promotion and publication of a book on Sister Smiles. Jeannine has some unfinished tapes and song projects. In bitterness and sadness, Jeannine. He bought the cognac while Jeannine rushed off to the corner pharmacy to request fatal doses of Ativan and Darvons. She not only did this without a prescription, but was allowed to charge it. The pharmacist would later inherit paintings to cover the bill, which Berler would request he give back to settle the tax debt. The druggist refused to return them when he should have been grateful not to face criminal charges and a loss of his license. Fabian would call the apartment for days without an answer, but he assumed the two women were off in Clearland. Berler returned from a business trip on April 1st, 1985 to find an envelope with familiar handwriting among the accumulated mail. He was inclined not to believe the contents of the letter, as the two women had many times before lamented their misery, but he called the police and informed them of the situation after calling the apartment and getting no answer. A policeman lived at the Green Horizons who knew Deckers, and thus he was sent to do a welfare check. In their effort to meet death, Anne and Jeannine used the deadbolt to keep Fabian out of the apartment, which forced the police to use bolt cutters to enter. Tchaikovsky was playing through the thick air, Piano Concerto No. 1. On the table in the living room were the burial requests of both women. I desire burial with my cross of the road, and to rest with my dear friend and sister Annie next to me. Jeannine wrote a note to Annie. Our life was a departure of two, the joys of two, the lived sorrows of two, the sun admired by two, the Lord as the place and the tie, our friendship, a departure in silence of two, to God we go. Our two bodies in the broad wind, the big blue ocean, our two united hearts, one with the other, plus the tenderness of God. That I offer to you for our departure of two. And Annie to Jeanne, you were all that I could expect from a friend, and even more. Thank you for all that, Sister Ed. Thank you for all that you gave me. Thank you for all that you were. There for me in the hours of suffering, moral and physical. And thank you for everything, for being you. I join you in plenitude, in the beyond. May the Lord forgive us. I love you with all my heart. Annie. In the bedroom, the two friends had laid down on their beds after dividing 150 extended release Ativans and 150 of the other tablets. On the nightstand were 2 goblets and a half-full bottle of cognac that had ushered the two into the next world. It is highly unlikely that both died at the same time, and often drug overdoses cause a person to vomit, with suffocating from a blocked airway actually causing the death. Thrilling thought that Jeanine Deckers could have spent an hour or so next to her deceased friend. What I know is this, that I get notifications about this video with Jeanine Deckers' song, The Smiling Nun, The Singing Nun, and they come in from all over, especially Europe. Here's one. And they are so complimentary, and they are so grateful. And they started coming in during the pandemic, and it grew, like I said, to 3,800,000 people so far. And they have this interest, thanking me, remembering this song during their childhood after the John F. Kennedy assassination and the British invasion. So I see that her value is very important. There is a professor that pulled out a $20 bill in his classroom and said he would be giving it to one of his students. But first he wanted to make a point, so he took the $20 bill and crumbled it up. And then after he crumbled it up, he stepped on it. And then he asked his students, "Do you still want this $20 bill? Has it lost its value just because it got crushed and stepped on?" And I believe this is the message of Jeanine Deckers. Just because she got crushed and stepped on somehow, somewhere, doesn't mean that she lost any bit of her value. And to this day, after another crisis, her song renditions, other interpretations still being done, but still blessing the world, even after her turbulent life and unfortunate death. Though a troubled woman, Jeanine Deckers was ahead of her time. Like many nuns and ex-nuns, she dreamed of being a priest, to see women equal in religion.